Hello, this is the original Lara Croft, and you're listening to Dr. Paul Harrison.
Thank you, Lara. Welcome, everyone, and welcome back. As you can see, I was blessed with an interview with Shelley Blond, the original voice of Lara Croft this week, for which I am eternally grateful. And speaking of eternity, it's certainly been a long hiatus, and longer than intended. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world, and being a one-man operation, I've had to prioritise. So, apologies for the long break between episodes, but now we are back with plenty of amazing guests in the pipeline. First up, some news. Some of you may have noticed a service outage and a name and domain change. Why the change? Simply put, even though my PhD was undertaken in an Egyptology department, my interests have always been much broader spread. My original background was in environmental science, and I was a field archaeologist in Britain before I specialised in Egypt. Even after that, I ended up practicing as much anthropology and sociology as Egyptology. So I decided to escape the pigeonhole and redefine the areas the podcast could cover. Now, worry ye not, Egyptologists and fans of Egyptology. It's still a subject very near and dear to my heart, so there will be plenty of Egypt-related paraphernalia and guests and content on its way. I just don't want to stay in that corner all the time. I want to be able to explore other things and hopefully build a bigger audience while we're doing so. This is very exciting for me. I have friends and contacts in a divergence of fields who I can't wait to get on the show. And it means I can cover more of the contemporary interest areas I have and hopefully keep it grounded and relevant enough to bring everyone else along for the ride. So yes, Profane Egyptologists is dead. Long live the Profane Humanities podcast. Speaking of, this week's guest certainly brought out my inner fanboy. Shelley Blond is an actor and voice actor whose work includes West End stage productions and many a household name TV show, including Cold Feet, Peep Show, and feature films such as Snow White the sequel. She's been a voice you've likely heard on Heart FM, ITV, Disney and Nat Geo, amongst other places. But perhaps the role most archaeologists and historians know her best for is that of the original voice of Lara Croft Tomb Raider. The original Tomb Raider game was a hit on a scale hard to relate to our younger listeners out there. The first game of its kind, nobody, including the creators, knew how people would react to a 3D, third-person, exploration, action-adventure game. Now, we take this genre for granted now, a quarter century later. But this was something never seen before, and it was a gamble. Tomb Raider sits at the threshold of where video games stopped being juvenile entertainment and began being conceived of as cinematic. The interaction, the musical score, and the performances made this game something modern audiences now take for granted. They made it an immersive experience. The first Tomb Raider game sold 1 million copies in its first quarter, and went on to sell 7 million worldwide, receiving critical acclaim and setting the standard for modern gaming as we know it. It went on to become one of the most influential games of all time, and served as a template for many action-adventure exploration games to follow, driving 3D graphics technology as it did so. The series holds 6 official Guinness World Records, and Lara herself has become a worldwide icon. The character of Lara Croft has sometimes found herself at the centre of controversy. One of the first female protagonists in gaming, she was largely embraced by an, at the time, majority male gaming audience. Of course, the demographic has since changed. Lara also sits at a sometimes uncomfortable point between sex icon, on the one hand, and strong, independent female protagonist, on the other. And this is a conversation, even since the reboot of the franchise, that fans and pundits are still having worldwide. At the genesis of this maelstrom of mainstream media attention was a young actress who had no notion of what she was getting herself into, or that she'd become forever linked to a cultural icon who rivals the likes of Indiana Jones and James Bond. I had the opportunity to speak to Shelley about her experiences as and with Lara Croft, so please welcome to the show, actor Shelley Blond. Shelley, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've been really looking forward to this interview, and I'm really keen to explore your thoughts on several topics. But first, let's add some context. Starting at the beginning, when did you decide you wanted to be an actor?
Oh, gosh. I think I was probably 3 or 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I was very, very young. And I used to spend all my youth watching movies, watching Fred Astaire movies, Ginger Rogers, Gene Kelly movies. And I knew that I wanted to sing, act and dance. And, went eventually, after doing all my O-levels as they were back then, and my A-levels, I went to drama school. And then after that, just started working in West End shows and pantos and commercials, anything that would have me, really. And it was when doing a musical in the West End that a voiceover artist came to see me after the show to ask if I was represented for my voice at all, and I wasn't. And then that's how the voiceovers took off, because they took me on, and then the voiceovers came. I always wanted to be a performer. I didn't know I wanted to be a voiceover artist. I always knew I wanted to be on stage. And then once I'd done stage, then TV kicked in and presenting kicked in, and then the voiceovers kicked in, and that's where my passion still lies. I thought my passion was being on stage, and then that kind of petered out after years of doing that. But this has stayed for 25 odd years, and it's still my huge passion today, as it was when I first did my first voiceover gig.
And it's such a challenging field to get into and to break into. I mean, were there any kind of key moments or key figures, influences in the decision to pursue that?
To pursue the voiceover?
Well, to pursue acting in general and the voiceover.
Oh, to pursue acting? No, because I came from a family of tailors, of sweet shop owners and pharmacists. So there was no acting in my family at all. So I was kind of the odd bod. And people didn't really know how to handle my dreams and my passions at all. So my mum and dad would allow me to do amateur theatre. I was always, in all the school shows, and after school could do amateur theatre and, drama clubs, this, that and the other. And then they could see that really that was the only way it was going. That was the only thing I had an interest in. And they said to me, listen, as long as you get all your exam results, as long as you go to school and you go to college and you get all that side of things done, we'll support you as much as we possibly can. Not knowing, how to get you in there or how to go about it, but we will support you as much as we can. And they really did. They, I was able to go to drama school for a year, and then they helped me, write letters to agents, write letters to shows. They took me to auditions that we saw in the stage newspaper, and that's how I got all my jobs. They were very supportive. They still are to this day. And I wouldn't have been able to do anything without them acknowledging my hopes and my dreams and helping me to pursue them. And that's what I hope I can continue with my children. I always say, be the best that you can, you do the best that you can do, and you'll find your way eventually. You'll find what you want to do. You don't need to be the best in the class. I just want you to do the best that you can. You'll find your passion, and then we'll help you follow that passion. I think a passion is very, very important in life.
That's brilliant advice. Yeah. And I mean, I think it was Joseph Campbell that used to say, follow your bliss and the rest will come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel it's very, I don't know who said it, but I know that, if you love your work, you don't work a day in your life.
Yeah.
That really
Confucius,
is true.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confucius, I think, said that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So now, obviously, I don't want to focus just on Tomb Raider, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's clearly you're a big part in creating
the reason
that
I'm
icon.
here.
Well, it's a major draw for much of the audience. But before we get into that, I mean, what have some of your favourite roles been? You've certainly paid your dues. I
love actually being able to do silly voices and kooky voices. But my kind of bread and butter is in the promos. So I do a lot of advertising programs that are coming up. That's my bread and butter. But when I'm able to do documentaries, that's fantastic too. But the real buzz comes from doing, witchy voices or evil, or I much prefer being an evil character to a goody, and really being able to get into a role and change my accent or change my voice. That's what I love to do. So I did a movie quite a few years ago now, called Snow White the sequel, with Rick Mayall and quite a few wonderful people. I was Cinderella in that, and Cinderella at the stroke of midnight turns into a man. So I was both the man and Cinderella. And she was, she was from Essex, and I was able to just do, it was just wonderful. It's wonderful to do stuff like that.
That's brilliant. And I mean, you've been on like Casualty, Cold Feet. You were in Peep Show, which I personally love as well.
Yeah,
great career.
Yeah, you see, that was when I still had my passion for acting. So I did all the stage stuff for years, and then it progressed into TV, and then I left the stage stuff behind, and the TV was thrilling. The fact that I got to do, I mean, everyone did Casualty and everyone did The Bill, but the fact that I got to be in two of my favourite programmes, Cold Feet and Peep Show, was just mind-blowing to me. And they were such fun. Great people, all the people, the regulars that you see on the screen, blooming lovely people. And it was just great to be part of all that. It was just so much fun. But then I kind of lost my passion for all that, and I got married and had kids, and not so much fun sitting by the phone waiting for an audition, waiting for the phone to ring, or leaving the kids to go and do a film shooting at 3 a.m, or what have you. That wasn't for me anymore. It was just such a natural, that's a no from me. I've done everything I ever wanted to do, and so I was able to just say, no, it's just the voiceovers now. No
regrets whatsoever, which is great. I think a lot of people don't kind of appreciate from the other side of the camera, having kind of worked on both sides of the camera myself, not to the extent that you did, obviously, but there's a lot of very, very early starts, a lot of very, very hard work. There's a lot of being treated not necessarily very terribly well on sets, depending on your role.
I did. I remember doing. I did a. It sounds awful, doesn't it? I remember doing a film with Steve Coogan, and we had to fly to. It was called Cruise of the Gods, and we had to fly to Greece, and it all sounded as the glamorous, go to Greece, and we stayed in a motel on a swamp, and it was so revolting to be there. And from the all the beds had bed fleas, bed mites.
Oh God.
We were there 3 or 4 days, and we left. I'm like, the midges love me. I left there covered head to toe in massive welts from mosquitoes. And it was not glamorous at all. Yeah, and it's really early morning starts and very late nights, and it's a fantastic life. But for me, once I'd had kids, I didn't want that wasn't important to me anymore. Being mummy and doing something that I love, and being able to do that thing that I love and not put my family in any jeopardy or neglect was really important to me. And that's voiceovers has, totally fits in with my lifestyle. Pre-COVID, the kids going to school, I'd be able to drop them both at school, park the car, get on the train, go and do my voiceovers, 1 or 5 or whatever I had that day, and then make sure I was there. I didn't have any voiceovers when it was school pickup time, and then just come home. And that was, so I'm always there to pick up the kids and drop them off, and yet do all my stuff in between. And so I get to be mummy, but I also get to still be me, and do what I love. Yeah.
And how's it been post-COVID? I'm guessing that you clearly are still getting the voice work, so you're recording from home.
Do you know what? I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful. I've got the best agents in the world, Yakety Yak. They're so supportive, and they are just blooming brilliant. But it was because of my husband that I've been able to work. He could see what was happening in Italy and Spain originally, and saying, the same thing's going to happen here, and we just don't have the setup, and if you won't be able to work, and so I think we should at least look into getting the equipment. And I don't like change at all, so I was like, oh no, I'll be fine. But he did. He went on eBay, and he spoke to some engineers, and he got the right microphone, and he got the this and that we needed, and really simply on eBay, and it came to us within 2 weeks. You could not buy the gear on eBay.
Yep.
I mean, gone. So thank God he did it when he did. And he built me a little studio in a cupboard, did all soundproofing, and I just climb up into my cupboard, shut the door, and it's totally soundproofed, and it's fantastic.
I've seen the pictures on Twitter, actually. It looks cozy.
Marry yourself a handyman, that's what I say.
That's it, marry a secret prepper. That's the way forward.
But I'll tell you what, it's hotter than hell up there. It is, in this heat, this summer heat. It is. So I do most of my jobs at night, just to when it's a little bit cooler.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm also working in an attic space at the moment, and It is punishing.
I feel you.
Really punishing. So other than bonding over old school gangster rap Ice-T albums on Twitter.
Yes. I love me some Ice-T.
It was classic 90s. I've been wanting to ask you some questions about the Tomb Raider phenomenon, which was...
Okay, I hope I can answer them.
I think you probably can. You were there. I don't think a lot of the youngest of the listeners probably won't remember or appreciate the size of that phenomenon at the time, and just how big a deal this really was. You said previously you'd been working for about a year, was it, when you got the Tomb Raider costume?
No, do you know what? I think it was my second job. I think it was I'd only been a voiceover artist for, I'm going to say 8 weeks.
Wow.
I'm going to say 8 weeks, if that. And my first job was for the BBC, an animation called Total Reality, and I was the voice of one of the characters in that. And then the next job was, I'm pretty sure the next job was Tomb Raider. So even for me at the time, it was just a gig, just a gig. I went into a studio, did it, came out, no clue. Even they had no clue how successful it would be. And then a year later, smash, boom, everywhere.
Of course, because there's that huge delay between recording and release, isn't there? Yes. So, was it a convoluted casting process, or was it a fairly straightforward thing?
Well, it was. I mean, it's straightforward for me. It wasn't for them, I'm sure. But I had a phone call from my agent, and they said, "Listen, there's these guys that've been looking for a voice, and it's for a character, and blah blah blah. But they've been looking for 6 to 9 months, so let's not hold out any hope. They're very fussy. But would you like to put something down on tape?" And got my little tape recorder out, pressed play and record, and read the 3 lines that they'd asked me to read. I had it faxed over with a picture of her faxed over, a drawing of her, and they asked for her to be quite deadpan, not much personality, kind of a female Sean Connery Bond, but not squish. And so I did it. I mean, I just said the words, I just said the lines and thought nothing else, popped it in the post. That was it. And then 3 days later, had a phone call saying they'd like to do a conference call with you. And that conference call was with Nathan and a few other people, some people in Derby, some people in London, and me. And then they said at the end of the conversation, "You've got it. You got the job."
Just like that.
I was like, "Oh, yeah, brilliant."
Fantastic. Yeah. Do you remember what 3 lines they were that they sent you?
Definitely one was about "Welcome to my home." Definitely. I can't remember the others. I really can't. I'm sorry, but. Yeah, I do remember that. And I don't remember thinking, "Oh, yeah, I got a computer game," because I'm not a gamer. I just remember thinking, yeah, you got a job. Yeah. And they've been looking for so long for the voice, and apparently I'm it. So that was a lovely feeling that they'd looked for so long and chose me,
Absolutely, yeah. I remember having one of the first, in fact, the first TV gig I went for many years ago now. Well, about a decade ago, and it was a studio in the States had been looking for Indiana Jones type.
That's you, yeah.
And apparently that was me at the time, and it was a similar situation in that I just threw in an audition. I got some advice from an actor friend at the time, and I tried all these convoluted things. Like, we had a friend tie me up dressed as Indiana Jones and shoot this video, and it was awful. Just terrible.
You gotta do it. You gotta be in it to win it.
I just ended up rolling out of bed one morning and recording the thing that they wanted, sending it in, forgetting about it, like you say.
Yes.
And then a couple of weeks later, if that, I had a phone call and I was on a plane to the States, and that's how all the TV presenting started.
What a gig.
Crazy.
How fantastic.
Crazy. It's weird when that happens, isn't it? But,
yeah, when it happens, though, it's wonderful. It's one of life's little adventures. We're very lucky to have these little, some people never get these glorious little adventures, little snippets of their life, and it's a wonderful thing.
It's so true. Yeah, I do count
little stories to tell.
Exactly.
Grandkids,
exactly.
Yeah.
Do you? And it sounds like it was a fairly quick and done kind of job. But do you remember your first kind of thoughts and impressions of that character, that Lara Croft character?
No, I just remember thinking she was cute and sexy. She looked very sassy. But everything that I wanted to do for her, the way I saw her, they were very much against. So they would keep poo-pooing if I gave her more attitude or more sexiness or more personality. No, bring it back. We want a very, I say boring. But and it's funny when I see people's comments about the voice of Lara. Everyone has their favourites, of course. And when they make comments about my voice, all I can say is I did exactly what they asked me to do. So the voiceover artist does what they're told, what the director and creatives tell them to do. It's not our baby, it's their baby.
Absolutely.
So we just have to deliver what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of, that approach, I remember thinking when I first started playing the game, and I do have a bit of a confession in that playing those games is what got me back to archaeology back in the 90s, which is crazy to it's kind of come full circle for me, because sitting playing those games, or rather watching my friends play those games to begin with, and thinking, okay, I've got to play this thing. This is incredible. This is Indiana Jones, and
wowzers!
This character's amazing. And I loved the kind of the physicality, the acrobaticness. I loved the like you say, James Bond-esque-ness of that character. And I think those are all still a draw. And it's really interesting to know that the direction that they gave you it's almost the opposite of where they ended up going with the character.
Where they ended up, yeah. It's funny, isn't it?
So your instincts were right, obviously.
Yeah. And I think, well, I'm always right, dear. No, it's a shame, because sometimes I hear my voice on things that people might tweet or originally on YouTube, and I don't like it at all. I don't like my voice at all. If I could go back and change it all, I would. So it's lovely to hear when someone, we're all our biggest critics. And it's lovely to hear when someone says, oh, your voice was the voice of my childhood, or this, that, and the other. But really, I'm like, oh, I didn't like it at all. It's funny, isn't it?
Well, like you say, we are our harshest critics. And it's one of the things that I do every time I watch or listen back to anything. To be honest
100%.
And just 100%. Think of, I could have improved there or there or there.
Absolutely.
It's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a good point to kind of point out for, again, the viewers out there, just how revolutionary a female lead for a video game was back then as well. In the first third-person 3D action game.
Yeah. Well, it was the first person, wasn't it? Yeah. It was the first one. It was. And the fact that, I can only go by what I saw, which seemed to be more men playing the game. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But they embraced her totally, utterly, completely. Yep. It wasn't like, a woman would never do this. It was totally, they got it, they believed it, and they were behind it. And that was amazing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my experience as well. I think between my friend and I, who introduced me to the game back in the 90s, the phrase "I am Lara" came out of each of our mouths so many times as
amazing.
we were, playing through these things. It's fantastic, and that was a big inspiration, really.
Yeah, it's only actually since being on Twitter for the last 5 years or what have you that I realised that girls play too. I didn't know, because I'm not a gamer. I didn't know girls were gamers. I don't know any female gamers. All the gamers I know are boys. Or men rather. So it's incredible, to see these gamers that are women, and their passion for it. And I love, like Melanie Mack, and I love it that she's adored by both, and I like that.
Absolutely. And I think the female demographic of gaming is now actually a larger proportion than men. I think it's something like 60-40 now.
Yeah,
it's huge.
I'm seeing them all the time on my Twitter feed, and it's female. It's wonderful.
Before I kind of get into the what that means in a bigger kind of broader cultural context, what kind of considerations were there for you when, as an actor, when accounting for the technology or lack of technology really of the time? I mean, did that influence your performance or your perception of what to bring to the performance?
Not at all. It's don't forget, then we didn't do the mocap.
Right.
It was that they do now. So it was literally going into a studio like I do all the time and acting. So it was just bringing bringing the acting, which I've been doing forever, but without anyone seeing me. Yeah. So whatever lines they gave me to do, I was full on acting, but also trying to bring it back, because it was very frustrating. It goes against everything I am. I'm giving it all in the booth physically and facially, but also trying to pull it back like they want me to. I would have thought it's very different now with mocap. Your whole body's there. It's a ballet. It's your whole body is. When I do a voiceover, my whole body's in it anyway, but not to the extreme that it would be with mocap, because you really are. It's a dance, isn't it? You really are. It's a full on physical exertion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we take it for granted that video game production mirrors film production nowadays, even though
yes,
the budgets are comparable nowadays. But I suppose
it was so simple back then, you know.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And
So,
I did Black and White as well, the game Black and White.
oh, I
And
remember that.
Yeah, I did all the female voices in that, so old, young, you know, whatever. And again, I think that was just after, it was just after Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Again, that was just literally sitting in a booth and acting my socks off, you know. I had more leeway with that one because there were loads of different characters and different voices. But again, would be totally different now, you know, with all the, you know, advancement in technology, totally different.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Black and White. That must have been quite a trip, actually, getting to do loads of different characters.
Oh, I loved it. Oh yeah, that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So at what point, or was there a point, did you realize, you know, how big this was becoming? Was there a I have arrived moment, you know, maybe where it sold a million copies in 4 months or something?
Oh God, I don't think I've ever had an I've arrived moment ever in my life. That's just not me. But I realized that she was something, or it was something, when I saw the Face magazine. I think it was that. I was also asked to do a cinema commercial, and I was thinking, hey, for this gig I did a year ago, what? You know, and I didn't. Yeah, and also, I did a film a few years later, and all the crew in New York were bonkers about Lara. And then when I said, oh, that's odd, because that's me, you know, they were like, what? And then I had to do the voice every 2 seconds, and to see the way they reacted, it was just like, bloody hell, you know, she must be something, because I didn't know any of this, you know. But I've never had a, oh my God, it's me moment. Yeah. Just like, I feel, and I didn't really realize till I joined Twitter, you know, and realized the state of the fandom, how big it is globally, that I just think it's such an honor to be part of it. And every time someone says something magnificent about it, or says a lovely comment to me, I just think, oh my God, how lucky am I? How lucky am I that I was the original voice? I was her original voice. I mean, how many people could say that?
Yeah.
Nobody, just me. There's 6 other girls? Me, Judith, Janelle, Keely, Camilla. I think even Minnie Driver did one. And how fantastic that we're all the voice of this phenomenal icon. Yeah. But hi guys.
You set the standard.
The original.
That's right. Yeah, you set the template for everything that followed. And I mean, that's even true. I read that Angelina Jolie was studying your rendition of the voice.
That's it.
She did. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love her, but that I only know that because a friend of mine was in the film with her, and you know, had a little. He wanted to trying to find any excuse to speak to her. Oh, I know. I'll mention the fact that my mate was the original. So he told her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you know, I've been studying her voice. I've been listening to her voice over and over to get the accent right, to get it all right." So you know, and he rang me to go, "Guess what? Yeah, I spoke to her and she said this," and I was like, "Oh, so wonderful." Yeah,
I bet. And she became such a cultural icon, both as a strong, independent female protagonist and kind of almost conversely as a polygon sex symbol on magazine covers. What did you make of all that as that was happening?
Well, that was, again, you see, I only saw her on the face, but I thought the fact that she's I was pretty sure, I might be wrong, the only person on the face that wasn't an actual person.
I remember reading
that. And that is incredible in itself. Yeah. I just think it's incredible that she was, you know, an icon on front cover of magazines, and she's an animated, you know, it's wonderful.
Did you pay much attention to the conversation that started kind of happening around that character? Like the idea of like, I mean, there was some controversy, I think, in the press about the kind of sexualized direction they were taking the character in. Yeah. And the proportions and whether this was girl power or whether it was something else, you know, the male gaze. I mean, what was that like kind of from the sidelines? I didn't know any of it.
Really? Honestly, I did not know any of it. The first time I ever saw something in the paper was when there was a little interview about Judith Gibbons doing the voice for the second game. Mm-hmm. I didn't pay much attention to it. You know, I as I say, I'm not a gamer, so nothing about. I don't know. I never saw anything written down about her. If I had to go and do a gig or had to do a Lucasade or something, I'd turn up. But apart from that, reading anything about computer game, I just didn't see anything. I didn't even know about it. it's hard if you're such a gamer to understand somebody who isn't. It's just not on my
wasn't
radar.
on the radar. And this was pre-internet as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, there was
no radar. So,
and
if
no
I
Twitter.
didn't go out and get a newspaper that day, I wouldn't know anything about it. So it didn't mean a thing to me.
And I mean, speaking of things like LucasAid ads, there were lots of spin-offs, lots of spin-off material from the original game, cartoons, books, etc. Were you involved in a lot of that stuff?
Wasn't involved in any of that stuff.
Oh, really?
Wasn't involved in it. It's only in later years where I've been asked to do interviews for books or magazines or, podcasts and Comic Cons and hosting the Tomb Raider suite and things. No, I wasn't privy to any of that. I wasn't able to do the second and the third game, but gave my permission to use my sound bites, they're called, for those two games. So even though Judith and I think then Janelle, I gave my permission for my sound bites to be used on games 2 and 3. And that's all that. And after that, it was all out of my hands. I was nothing to do with any of it. I know that I think my soundbite was also used for the U2. There was a U2 track.
Yes, of course, because
Lara,
U2 got in touch with Core Design or something.
I mean, that's unbelievable, no?
Yeah, amazing.
That's unbelievable.
Amazing.
So anyway, so that's that. And it's only in later years with the internet and with this and that I see things. Does it bother me about boobs and things? I mean, it can get a bit ridiculous, but I think she looks fabulous in all her forms. I just think she looks terrific. Who cares? Big boobs, small boobs, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, that's the epitome of girl power, isn't it? You get to choose. So, do you have any fun memorabilia from that period?
I have my game still in its original cellophane wrapping.
Oh, fantastic!
So that's never even come out the box. No, that's all I have. I tell a lie. The following Christmas, I got a Christmas card I got a series of 5 Christmas cards of Lara Croft Christmas cards sent from Core Design.
Brilliant.
Which I still have them upstairs. And I have memorabilia of, interviews I did with, reviews that were in the paper from the New York Times at that time when the first game came out. So I still have those upstairs. But the memorabilia I've got is from recent years, from hosting the Tomb Raider suite, the programs for that and the laminate passes and things for that and things that fans have sent me. And I've got a little tiny collection of Lara dolls, which I love. And I have some originals of as well. There's a fantastic company called Fabby Dabby Dolls. Yeah. And they make generally dolls from the West End musicals, all the musicals. So when anyone's in a show, the cast will then contact Fabby Dabby, and Fabby Dabby will make, for opening night, a little character of the character, of a doll of the character they're playing. Yeah. And I saw these and I thought, I wonder if they've ever made a Lara Croft. And they hadn't. And they made me my very own little Lara Croft. So that's the original of that.
Wow.
And I've got a little Lego Lara Croft, which I love. And I recently, last week, commissioned somebody to make, Emma Corney, to make a knitted Lara Croft doll, the very first knitted Lara Croft. So I've got a few originals of things.
An actual cuddly Lara.
A little cuddly Lara. Yeah. Look what you could have won. Yeah. So I've got that.
You mentioned the Tomb Raider suite. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's all a bit of a blur because I suffer terribly, and I never did when I was on stage. I suffer terribly from stage fright now.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if it's because, as you get older, you realise things can go wrong. When you're younger and on stage, you've got no fear. And also when you're playing a character on stage, you can just, if something goes wrong, you can just ham it up as that character. When you come on to host something, you're you. And, I was me. And I was very aware the entire time that some people are sitting in the audience wanting to see the original voice of Lara Croft. So all the time I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't look anything like her. And they're just going to think I'm so ugly and old. And, what if I fluff up on these lines and there's thousands of people? I was just constantly, my mouth was so dry that my lips were stuck to my teeth like a skeleton. And I just was in the wings wanting to vomit before every time I came out to say something. And I was just a bag of nerves. I don't know how it went so well, but it did. And yeah, it's not something I relish doing. A big part of me, in fact 80% of me, wants to say, I'm so sorry, I can't do it, I just can't do it. But the other 20% of me says, you know what, push yourself, you might regret not doing it, push yourself, do something you don't want to do, something out of your comfort zone, but also how bloody lovely for the fans, you know.
Yep.
So that's also why.
And it's good that I'm glad that 20% won, because we tell ourselves all these negative things in our heads, and they're almost always not true at all, and not what other people think, you know, about us. So I think that's great that you did that, and I'm really glad to hear that it went well as well. Yeah,
it really did. You know, I came off flying like, oh my God, I can't believe it was brilliant. But would I do it again? I don't think so. I don't think so. It's too much. Oh, it's too much.
And what does the Tomb Raider suite itself involve for everyone who's not familiar with that?
So the Tomb Raider suite is Nathan McCree's music. He's the composer of the music for the first 3 games.
Loved it.
Beautiful music for all Lara's theme tune, you know, for the themes throughout the computer games. And for the fans of the classic games, it's as important as Lara. You know, when you watch a film, the music is as important, you know, as the dialogue, as you know, what's happening, because it's the music that pushes it along. You know, as we all know, you know, if you're watching Jaws and, you know, and you're seeing someone swimming and all of a sudden, oh my God, your heart is beating. It's terrifying. It's you know, and that's what Nathan McCree's music did for the games. It made it so movie-esque and helped people with the excitement, with the fear, with the, you know, with the T-Rex, so the Tomb Raider suite was all the music that he wrote, and a screen at the back with clips from the game, and me coming out to explain, to introduce every piece of music and a little bit about it and what it meant for Nathan, or what it was meant to represent, or what have you. And if every piece of music was played by the London Philharmonic Orchestra.
Wow.
So, you know, you hear the music and it's fabulous, and, you know, okay, if you're a gamer, it takes you back to your childhood when you first played it. But when it's played by the London Philharmonic Orchestra, you know, like 100 musicians in their bow ties and their tuxes, you know, and their, oh my gosh, all my hairs were standing on end. It was the most magical. It was just a phenomenal thing, not just to experience and to watch and to hear, but to be part of. And it really wasn't just coming on going, yeah, so now it's going to be this bit. It was such an honor. It was just a wonderful evening. And you know, to be able to be the one to introduce every glorious piece of music played by them, performed by them, and written by Nathan was incredibly magical.
It sounds so much fun, and I was so sad to see I'd missed it. I didn't even know it was happening, and I was such a huge fan of that score, that soundtrack. I used to, I absolutely am. I used to listen to that music. I remember getting when Anniversary came out, there was a special edition with a bonus CD that had all the Tomb Raider music on it.
Wow.
And I remember racing out to grab that on the day that came out, little Tomb Raider nerd that I am. And I used that when I was writing my master's thesis and my PhD in Egyptology. Really? I would listen to those to get me in the right frame of mind.
Wow.
So,
I listened to Ice-T to get me in the right frame of mind.
Ice-T and Saul Williams also make an appearance. Very true. Very true. Have you ever had any kind of feedback on how the game has influenced people other than myself tonight? You know, like
I haven't. That's one of the things I've spoken about before, because it really, really touches me. And I'm sorry for anyone listening if I'm repeating myself from other chats with people, but what is unbelievable to me is how the games, not just mine, have globally touched people's lives. Now, obviously, I can only speak for mine, because I only get the private comments from people about my game. I don't get it, you know, Janelle can speak about hers and Judith can speak about. But for me, when I hear, and don't forget, I've only been hearing for the last 5 or 6 years since being on Twitter, how it's touched people's lives. It's, oh my God, it's so humbling. You know, for example, I had one guy that told me he was always bullied at school. He was gay, wasn't able to come out as gay, and had a hard time with his family about that and friends about that, and really terribly bullied. And the only way that he found any form of strength was to go home and play Lara. She gave him the strength to get through. And when I hear stories of, and there's many of these, of people that very young would play the games with their dads, mainly dads, but sometimes their mum, but mainly dads, and now the dads have died and they're no longer with us, and their memories of the game are playing with their dad. It's all mixed up with the emotion of hearing Nathan's music or hearing my voice triggers something in their heart, that reminds them of their dad. And oh my God, it kills me. It absolutely kills me. And it's every story is wonderful to hear, and I'm very blessed. I'm very touched by it all. I'm very honoured that I'm part of people's childhood, or part of their wonderful memories with their parents, or the way of getting through terrible times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a kind of magical thing to be a part of something that's not only kind of global but influential in a way that people have connected to. And very personally connected to as well. Everyone's got a different kind of emotional response.
Of course. And also what's lovely is to see on social media how people are connecting, someone in Brazil, connecting with someone in America, connecting with someone in Skegness, connecting with someone in, it's just unbelievable. How the fan, it's wonderful to see them all connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to see that it's a phenomenon that doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
No, it seems stronger than ever. What is it, 25 years nearly, and it's stronger than ever. I'm
guessing you didn't see Lara Croft still being around stronger than ever in 25 years when you took that role to begin with.
No. Honestly, I thought they didn't even know. Core Design and Eidos said, "Listen, we only do children's games. We're not even sure how well this will do, so we'll just play it by ear and see." And wowzers,
amazing, amazing. Do you? You say you haven't. You're not a gamer, so you haven't really kept in the loop of how the series has evolved. But do you know about the newer incarnation of Lara? Have you seen that? Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yes, I've seen and heard, just clips on Twitter. To me, it's a totally different character. It's not Lara anymore. But I appreciate that the people that have started with those games, that is Lara. I appreciate that. But to me, it's I don't like change. I mentioned that before. I'm a big fan of the oldies. I'm a big fan of back in the day, and that goes for Tomb Raider too. So I like the classic era. Even the ones I wasn't in. Yep. I don't like it so much when she's so animated and movie-like. I just don't like that. But I totally get that if you're a fan and you've gone all through from the first game up, that you might think it's wonderful. Times change. We've got to move with the times. That's terrific. But it's not for me. I like the old look. I like the old
personally
and all that.
I'm on the same page as you, but obviously that's my Lara, that's our Lara, so to speak. And I do appreciate that the new generation has their own, much in the same way that every generation has had its Bond.
Absolutely. It's only Sean Connery for me, but that's fine.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone's got their Bond, and maybe someone else will have another Lara in 25 years. We can only hope.
Absolutely.
But you'll still always be the originator of that. So
isn't that wonderful?
There is that.
Honestly, it's mind blowing to me that it's funny because my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, will say to people when we meet, my mum, they'll say to me, "What do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I do voiceovers." And she'll go, "My mum is Lara Croft," and they go, "Oh, of course she is." But they don't realise it's on the voice. My mum is Lara Croft. Yeah, okay. Funny.
Do you have any words of advice to aspiring actors out there, particularly with COVID going on, voice acting probably being the only game in town?
I have to say I feel so terrible for all the people in theatre, the shows. It's crushingly devastating. I've got many of my best friends are all my best friends, many of them are actors and in West End shows, and it is utterly devastating. I think things like filming and things are starting to happen, but Lord knows when musicals and theatres are going to start opening again. I would just urge anyone, if you've got an agent, to make sure. I mean, by now people should have got their stuff. I don't know how many weeks we're into lockdown, but to get the microphone, to get the bits and bobs that you need, to speak to any engineer friend you can, to get set up at home, so that at least you can, even if you're getting no work, at least you can record stuff to send off to even get an agent. Social media is a great one. We didn't have that in my day. Yep. So, so many people become very successful just from stuff they put out on social media, be it TikTok or Instagram, or, and if there's anything that you can do from home, doing your chosen field, to do it. But I just hope for all the actors, performers, I just hope that all the shows and filming and things start back soon, because it's crushing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a lot of friends in that field as well, and it's really sad to hear about the theatres as well.
It's devastating. Yeah, it's awful.
Well, we persevere, and hopefully
there's nothing else you can do, is there?
Exactly. We'll take a lesson from Lara, a little part of her book there, and press on.
Always keep positive. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I always say, even in the harshest times, and we've all had our hard times. I'm not just talking about work. I'm just talking about life as well. I always feel like these things happen to test us, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and this too shall pass. That's just the way I always feel.
Lara could not have put that better herself. Shelley, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to chat to you. It's been really, really fun. And that's unfortunately all we have time for in this episode. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed that, check out Shelley's other work in many, many places. One thing I could recommend to the archaeologists and historians out there is the excellent mini-documentary, The History and Geography of Tomb Raider, narrated by Shelley herself. You can find that over on YouTube, and Shelley can be found on Twitter at BlondeShelley, links in the show notes, and is represented by Yakety Yak Voices. Be sure to check in next month for more explorations of historical, archaeological, and environmental culture. I've been Dr. Paul Harrison. Thanks for listening.